Hi, welcome to CookBook. I'm Darren Demaree, and today we have C.W. Everett, poet, community organizer, publisher. She's the author of 3 chapbooks. You'll see her around Columbus at ComFest. She helps run the Poetry Forum. She's a publisher for Pudding Journal. You see her at Ohioana. Essentially, CW is the person that when you go to one of these literary events, you're excited to see and get to talk to. She is incredible. So she is here today. She's going to teach us how to make pumpkin bread, and then we'll get a chance to sit down and talk to her about all the things going on after the election in Columbus publishing and poetry and things like that. So welcome to CookBook. I have C.W. Everett here who's going to teach us how to make pumpkin bread. So, how do we put this together?
Okay, we're going to start with the liquid ingredients. Well, first of all, let's get the oven on and get it heated up to 350 degrees so it will be ready when we're ready to put it in.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
And the first thing I do is mix together the liquid ingredients. So I start with 3 eggs.
Okay.
I've pre-measured stuff so it would be a little faster and easier going this morning.
So this would be 1 egg then?
1 egg.
This one.
Yes. 2 eggs.
Okay.
And 3.
That's all right.
Okay, we've got a ½ cup of cold water here as well.
Okay.
And then I'll have you measure 3/4 cup of vegetable oil.
Okay. So how long have you made this?
This is a family recipe. My mother makes it. I can't remember us not having pumpkin bread. Now my daughter makes it. So it's
Generational.
been in the family for a long time.
Okay.
And it's easier to make than Mama strudel.
Okay. I can imagine
Where I have
the
to work with the
folding
phyllo dough, and I can't
Sure.
do that very well. Okay, you can start mixing that a little bit together and get it mixed up a bit.
Okay.
And then, once you kind of meld those together, you can put in the pumpkin, and then you'll mix that in as well. So
it's 3 cans of pumpkin.
It's actually, what it comes to is 1½ cups. In each of these, it says, wait a minute, okay, hang on. May not need all of this.
Okay.
I may have bad math. I usually
It's not a math show. It's not a math show. It's fine.
I'm a word person. I'm
There
not a
you
math
go.
person. But actually, okay, so we have, hold on a minute. No, I have. See, I can't even use a computer correctly. 0.5, hold on a minute, times 3.5 equals. Okay, you're good right now.
Good? Okay.
You're good right now.
Just put the second one in?
Hang on a second. Put in another, let's see, we've got 1 3/4 cups in here, and I think we need 2 3/4. You think I'd
So
know
just
this
put
by heart.
Put the top on, maybe?
Just, why don't you measure, no, we've got 1, we're fine.
We're good?
We're good, we're good.
We're good with just
We're
that?
good.
Okay.
Now you want to mix
Go ahead and
that
mix it
up.
again.
Yep.
Okay.
Still early morning.
It's all right.
My first cold morning in a while.
Yes, ma'am.
And once you get that kind of mixed, we're going to put in the sugar.
Okay, how much sugar?
And I have measured here 2 cups of sugar. At least it should be 2 cups of sugar. Always good to remeasure things. Let me rinse this out a little bit. No, no doggy. No eggs for you.
Do you want one of these?
Oh, if you have one of those, that's fine. And how much is that?
½ cup.
Okay, so you need 4 of these.
Okay.
I measured this last night before I went to bed, so, you know, it should be about right.
Okay.
Then again. And I often double this recipe for the holidays.
Sure, for a party or
so
something.
that's why I brought this along as a reminder in case.
Well, it's a party of sorts.
Yeah.
I think you might have been.
That was pretty close. Oh, I have a tendency to over-measure things. I thought about making chili, which is one of my favorite recipes.
Excellent.
When I cook, and I do think cooking's a lot like writing.
Sure.
You take a lot of unlikely things and put them together and see what happens. Baking, I cook by taste. So
Sure.
it would be like, oh, just put a little chili powder in and taste it, and you
Right.
know. So this is more exact, doing baking.
Yes, much more exact than
They
writing.
say cooking's an art, baking's
Sure.
a science.
All right, so what's
And
next?
so now you want to mix that
Okay.
around. Alright. And now we're going to put in flour.
Okay.
And we need 2 3/4 cups of flour. So
Okay.
And I find that
Yes,
I
sir.
usually put a cup in and mix it, and then put another cup
Just
in
so
and
it's
mix
not
it, because
too-
it's really
Sure.
thick when you put it all in at once.
Okay.
It's a great boiler. Things don't come
I was gonna say,
splat
without
out
that-
very much.
Without that, the odds of me hitting the camera with pumpkin bread mixture.
Yeah, it does go up exponentially. Whoa. And you might do it anyway.
There we go. So another cup.
Okay, another cup.
Okay. And then go ahead and mix again.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you'll just need another 3/4. So
Okay.
one of those and half of one of those.
Okay.
So I suppose we'll all be pumpkined to death after
Pie.
this week.
That's-
Pumpkin
that'll be
pies,
fun.
pumpkin breads. Okay, another 3/4.
Okay. This is just getting things started. This is the primer.
Yes, yes. We're
Okay.
just getting our mouths set for all the pumpkin.
Right? Actually, I think you did this one right on.
I think this one is good.
I feel good. I feel good about just
Yeah.
doing that.
And while you're at it, let's just go ahead and add this. And
Okay.
this is a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon and a half of baking soda, and 3/4 teaspoons of cinnamon and nutmeg.
Okay.
So we get a little bit of our
Get the spices in there.
spicy flavors in
Sure.
with this. And also some, whatever baking soda does, which
Which is
I guess helps
science.
cakes and things.
Sure.
It gets the odors out of your refrigerator.
That too.
And once this is mixed up, all fine, we'll be finished with the mixer itself.
Okay.
We're going to fold in the rest of the ingredients. Now what I have here, again,
Okay.
slightly over measured, because
That's
I always
all right.
throw an extra spoonful of or pinch full of everything.
Sure.
It says walnuts, chopped dates, and raisins. It calls for a half a cup,
Okay.
and I have a half a cup plus a pinch of each.
Of each. Okay. So
Of
put it
each.
in.
Put it in, and you can use a spatula to just fold it in.
Okay. All right.
And I think this is what makes our pumpkin bread really the best.
Okay. Okay.
Is that we put a lot of raisins and dates and good things in
Sure.
it to munch on. A lot of pumpkin bread doesn't have raisins and nuts and things
Right.
like that. And of course there are people who can't eat nuts, and there are people who don't like dates or raisins,
Sure.
but our pumpkin bread is really pretty delightful because it contains those things.
Yes, ma'am.
So,
Well, the extra pinches of things. That's really
and
the
those
key.
extra pinches
Yes.
do count. And once you've got those folded in, what we need to do is get the pans ready.
Okay.
Now this should make 3
Okay.
loaf pans. And we just use some baking spray.
Okay.
So that they're... Oh, and I'm coating you with some of it.
That's fine. That's fine.
And then fill it about half full.
Okay.
Okay. Come over here so I don't have this all over your kitchen. Those y tres.
Let's see. So about that?
That looks good.
Okay. About that. Alright. We'll get the other two.
It tends to make 3 big loaves or it makes 6 little loaves.
Okay.
And so...
So what determines whether or not you're going to do big loaves or little loaves?
How many people I have to give a loaf to.
Sure.
You know, over the holidays, you might take, I sometimes take cookies or pumpkin bread down to my bank, or down to give it to the postman, or give it to, you know, different people that serve our lives on a daily basis and help us out.
My dad's a lawyer, and when we were growing up, my mom would bake a bunch of cookies and different things to take to all of the courts for all the people that have to help with paperwork and help with all those things. So that was a good strategy. It was good.
Yeah,
it was nice.
Made him popular, and especially made her popular.
Yes, yes. I don't think there was any secret who was doing the baking.
Well, you know, I love pie.
Oh, yes.
But I don't make pie crusts myself. And
it's hard.
And really, the pie crust is the thing.
Yeah.
If you get a good pie crust, it makes that pie just pop in your mouth. That's why I think Just Pies is so good.
Just Pies is very good.
They told me one day, they said, well, our secret is we use lard. At that time, I didn't eat meat. For 5 years, I didn't eat meat. And of course, they said that as I'm walking out with a big pecan pie.
Right. They do a strawberry rhubarb there. That's great.
Yes, they do. All right, now what we're ready to do is pop those into the oven.
Okay.
Usually put them on the middle shelf. And they need to cook for about 55 to 60 minutes.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to get these put in the oven and give them a chance to bake. And while they are in here, CW and I will sit down and we'll get to talk about all things poetry, Columbus art scene, and we'll get a chance to talk about who knows. We'll try to stay out of the election, but you know, can't promise anything. Thank you. First and foremost, you are the maven of Columbus poetry, essentially, with the Poetry Forum. I see you at Ohio every time, everything you do for ComFest, pudding. Where do you find the energy to be involved in everything?
Well, I think that energy begets energy.
Okay.
I think that when I was younger, I'll just be honest, I had depression issues.
Okay.
And I think that when I discovered that staying busy was an antidepressant, I started really throwing myself into things, and I liked it, you know. And I realized that besides writing and reading poetry, and by the way, my MFA is in fiction.
Oh, okay.
And I also write fiction and nonfiction and so on and so forth, but about anything. But I found that I really liked marrying my writing with my other passion, which is political and social justice.
Sure.
So I've been involved in the peace movement. I put on demonstrations all over town, including in city council chambers and the state house. But I've also done poetry events for political causes or social causes. I've produced music and poetry mixed events, and I just love doing that. And when I first moved to Columbus, I was moving from a pretty supportive writing group up on Lake Erie. I was teaching at that time at Bowling Green and at Terra Tech, and I got involved with the Firelands Writers, and I was doing editing for Bottom Dog Press.
Larry.
And so Larry Smith,
I love Larry.
a very, very
Yeah.
dear old friend, and a great person to work
Yes.
with. He did so many great things up on the North Coast, as we call it, and I'm still very much in touch with all those people and consider them dear friends. But when I came down here, I was like, whoa, what am I going to do? I don't have that same group that I'm meeting with every month and on a regular basis. But I did know about Larry's on campus. And so I went down there, and before you know it, I had a reading, and then the next thing they asked me to be on the committee, and I said yes, because it was a great way to start to get to know people.
Right.
I also knew a lot of people from ComFest and had been coming to ComFest since the 80s.
Okay.
So they said, you want to work on this? And I said, sure, you know. And I believe a lot in community. And I believe that we get the world we work for. And I want a world full of art and community and good things. So, so I started doing as much as I could in those two areas. And those moved to the next thing, to the next thing. You meet people, they ask you to do other things. And pretty soon I was doing virtually too much.
Right.
But I think it's a good thing. I encourage people when I hear people say that they don't have enough to do. There's a lot to do out there.
Keep at it, and if even if you don't find the group that you fit in, you can find some people in there, and you can start your own group, and you can sort of go from one to another. It's one of the great things that we've got at this point. We've got the Columbus Poetry Forum, and we've got maybe another 6 or 7 reading series that have cropped up recently that are worth the time. Hannah Stevenson and Joy Sullivan and David Winter were running the Page in Columbus.
Right.
And there's other ones up and down High Street. There's some associated with OSU.
Right.
And it's just been sort of a great few years to even down the street in Clintonville at the coffee shop.
I think Peripatetic does their readings there. I don't know if the Poetry Guild is still doing any readings, because Dottie Turner, I'm not sure that she, is still putting those together. But yeah, I mean, Scott Woods has stuff going on, and we were driving downtown Columbus yesterday and went by Washington Street, and there used to be a little place down there that we used to do readings like 25 years ago. It's gone now.
Geez.
We were like, oh my God, where did it go?
Right.
But you're right. In fact, I was listening to NPR yesterday also, and they were talking about the fact that we have arrived as an arts city.
Yeah.
There's music, there's theater, there's dance, there's poetry, there's all kinds of writing, in fact. There's just so much going on. And a friend was visiting from Chicago, and he said, I had no idea this town had so much going on. And we just said, yeah, you can't possibly do it all.
No.
But that's a great thing.
And you can't get to everything all the time, but when you've got the time to do it, there's something you can go to.
There's always,
And even including Ohio Poetry Association and Chuck Salmons in that group.
Right.
And the way that Ohioana has blown up. It was out of high school, and now
I
it's
know.
taken over an entire hotel, essentially.
It's wonderful, yeah. And I do enjoy working at that event. I've done workshops there. But now I help with the author's dinner and the reception,
which is always a great
afterwards.
time.
And
after a long day, you're always a nice face to see at the end of it.
This last year, I worked the Ohioana thing with pneumonia.
Oh, jeez.
And I had a fever about 102, and I was smiling at everybody.
Well,
doing that.
after a long day where you're either sitting at the table or you're doing one of the panels, and this year we did a poetry reading to go with it too.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of people sort of rubbing their shoulders against each other all day. It's nice to have that event with a little bit of room to mingle or not mingle.
But
and
it
enjoy some
certainly
food.
shows how much talent there is in Ohio, how much commitment to literature. There are hundreds of authors there, and thousands of people come through that event. I was sorry to miss the Governor's Awards this year because I was in Florida, and I usually work that event as well. And again, it's always really nice. I mean, past governors show up, and it's really nice to see the state continuing to support the Ohioana because it's unique in the country.
It is.
You know, and I think we should be awfully proud of it.
And
I keep telling 614 I want them to do an article on it.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
And everything they offer for kids now, there's a whole kids section, and adding the readings, and there are 24 panels, and it's pretty great.
Yeah, it is, and David Weaver does an outstanding job. He's a wonderful person, and the people who actually put it physically together,
the logistics is impressive.
They are Confess people.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they know what they're doing.
Andy Watkins with Centerline Productions does that. She also puts together Highball and a number of other festivals in town. But that crew out there are all a bunch of Confesters. After 44 years, we know how to physically set a festival.
So maybe the lulls confuse them a little bit, but beyond that, everything's great. Well, that's great. And this whole community has been, growing exponentially, and it's been beautiful to see people come here for that, and come from around the state for Columbus, because there's good stuff going on in Cincinnati and Cleveland and Toledo, and we've got enough colleges and universities in this state that there's always stuff going on, but Columbus has really sort of become the hub. It's been good.
I agree. And I think, we now have a poet laureate.
Yep.
I think that was one of the things that OPA ushered through in the past year.
Everyone who was in that group
Abbott really helped a lot with that.
Yeah.
And that was a good thing. I think they're still working out lots of the details of how that process is going to work.
Right. What the role's going to be.
Yeah.
Sure.
But what a neat thing to have the state recognize.
Long overdue, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that when I was young, I sort of assumed there were poet laureates.
That it was already there, yeah.
But that's just not the case,
right.
So.
Well, and then you put together the authors we had, and there was sort of a deal where if ever a lot of people had to go do a panel, the leftover poets would stay and sort of monitor tables and things like that.
Yeah.
But Amit and Maggie Smith and Allison Stein, they all did a panel together, I think with John Phil Drury, maybe. Wow. And just, I wanted to be in the room. I had to guard the tables, but I wanted to be in the room because just the people that were getting to speak. And the year before, I was on a panel with Kazim Ali and David Baker, who was over at David's great.
The best.
And Larry Smith was on the panel. We got to talk about sort of the future of poetry in Ohio. And I go into elementary schools and read to kids and try to get them excited about poetry. And so it's a really exciting time.
Yeah.
And you are sort of at the center of all of these things.
Well, less and less so all the time. I'm getting older and getting out of the way for people like you.
I don't believe
young.
I don't believe any of those things you just said, but that's fine.
But one of the things that I think is that this is one of the most generous states when it comes to artists. I've lived a lot of different places, and I know
you've been
arts communities
from many places. I'm sure.
I have. I've been run out of many towns, but there seems to be a generosity of spirit here that isn't always noticed by me in other places.
Sometimes it's
more
elitist
elitist and more competitive, exactly. Right. And I don't find that to be the case here. I find that most of the time, some of our best and most successful authors in the state are like David Baker or like Robert Miltner or Larry Smith. I mean, these people are very generous of spirit and helpful to not just younger, but to other artists.
Sure.
And also for causes, because I call on these people all the time for, would you come and do a fundraiser this, or would you read for this event? And I find that they're almost always willing to do that. I mean, David Baker has raised a lot of money for us, and so has Ann Townsend and a lot of other really well-known authors in our area who've come in and done the fundraiser for the Poetry Forum, or have helped us read for, people have helped us read for tsunami victims, or to raise money for these sorts of things, and we walk away with thousands of dollars. People
well, I went to the last Poetry Forum where they were the last fundraiser where Maggie read, and that place was packed, and everyone put money in the hat, and it was great to see both Maggie, who's fantastic and a friend of mine, but for her to donate her time and for everyone to come out and donate money, and it was a crowd. It was a crowd for poetry, which is always a welcome thing.
I mean, there are times that we've had 60 to 100 people in a room for a poetry event, and that's pretty impressive.
It is.
In any town.
Sure. I've done, I've read different places, and sometimes it's the 10 to 20 people maybe you'd expect. Sometimes you get more, and that feels great. But I've also been there when it was my publisher, his girlfriend, and my wife.
Right.
And that was the crowd.
Right. My old friend David Shevin, he said one time, you read if there's 4 people in the room or there's 40 people in the room.
You still got to put on a show. You got to do your best.
And you got to do it just like you'd do it if there were 400. You've got
to get your reps in. You got to practice the poems, and then you got your reading copies that are all marked up, even though they've been published books. You're like,
right, you've changed that.
Do that now. And
I change things in readings all the time.
Exactly.
So
what is it that you're writing these days? Like, what are you working on?
Well,
I know you're too ornery to stop.
I actually, one of the things that the environment that I'm in Florida has given me a lot of material for sort of ecological driven poems lately. I'm, in fact, getting ready, after I leave here, I have a meeting with the senior editor for Pudding Magazine Books, and we're going to be doing a second issue. We're ready to do the layout of a second issue of Open Earth, which is eco-poems. The first issue was sort of agitprop-ish, which is exactly what she wanted, Dr. Suzanne Muller, and she's European, and honestly, I think they do a better job with political poetry. And who really does a great job are the South Americans. But, and I think we need more political poetry, and that's where I think I'm going to be headed.
Yes.
I really do think art leads the way.
Sure.
I am heartened, having been in rooms filled with artists and stuff since the election, and people are certainly shocked and in some cases very dismayed, but they are ready to turn that into art.
Enthusiastic to respond.
And I think I was so thrilled when I saw what Hamilton did last night. The Hamilton,
because they had Pence in the audience.
They had Pence in the audience. Now, people booing when he came in, I get that. But what really was powerful was the cast coming out and addressing him at the end and saying, look at us, this is America, and we want you to protect us and make sure that you care about us. That's what I want out of art. I want art to address the issues that we're definitely going to have. And I don't want dogmatic drivel. I want, I want people to be thoughtful. I still want it to be poetry. I still want it to be good fiction, or wonderfully written nonfiction, because I love a good personal essay. Oh, they're just a wonderful, powerful, often lyrical, poetic form. But we really do need to move away from planting the garden, unless that garden is the metaphor for planting social justice or peace, or and I think there's so many ways we can do that. Now, I'm not saying everything that any of us write will be about that, but I hope that we will take our talents, whatever they may be, and we will move it into an area that sheds some light on the world we want.
Find some action somewhere. Some of the action is just find a way to throw your arms around people that need it. And some of it is keeping things unsettled that maybe need to stay unsettled. There's been a reaction and an overreaction and a reaction to that that's been, we need to find peace. Well, peace is a good thing to have, but you don't want peace to be an acceptance of something that is not peaceful.
Hence, no justice, no peace.
You want justice.
And I do think a certain amount of tension and a certain amount of dissension is a very healthy thing in a democracy. And I would say that no matter who was in Congress or the White House or the governor's office or whatever, you need that balance, counterbalance. You just really do for a democracy. And so I think, you know, I mean, we have environmental issues, so
Sure.
environmental poetry is still going to be, you know,
Right.
I mean, people who want to write and use nature images are still going to be able to do that.
Mhm.
But Mother Earth may need our help a little bit more than usual.
Right.
No, and again, no matter what people do
Sure.
who are in power right now, Mother Earth is choking on a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And we need to, as artists, we need to address that at least with part of our energies.
Yeah.
If not, you know, some people will become obsessed and will do nothing but that. And some people will become incredibly beat you over the head preachy, and I don't encourage that.
Right.
You know, I find that with our magazine, with Pudding
Mhm.
Magazine, people send submissions, and I think they think because we say we're the journal of applied poetry, and we say our mission is, you know, to promote the poet and everyone, and to, you know, work our way through our everyday issues in life
Sure.
through writing and poetry. So sometimes what I get is a very primitive version of that.
Okay.
And I'm not, and I don't want to dismiss that, because I think everything that someone writes is really valuable to them, to their loved ones, to people they don't even know
Right.
who would respond to that. So sometimes it's hard to write those letters back, you know, and say, we can't use
Not quite a
this,
fit,
you know, that right now. Sometimes I try to find another journal that they might fit well in, because there's something for every type of writing
Sure.
out there. There are religious journals that will take all those God poems that I get,
Right.
and there are, you know, places that will take those work poems that that might not work for us. So there's always some place for these people. But I do think that we get a lot of poetry that is thoughtful and artistic and still addresses these topics.
I think the difficult thing is you don't want the skill to be lost in the anger or what the poem's trying to get at. It still has to be a good poem.
Yeah.
You still have to find music and energy and sometimes form, sometimes not, but you can't be so angry that you lose sight of what poetry is and what it can do.
Catharsis is fine.
Sure.
But as I used to tell my students, it was like, now go back and clean that up a little bit. Because I'm not going to tidy up your mess. This is, you know, and sometimes, you know, when I taught women's studies, well, my students always journaled in that class too, and you would see something and you would think, oh my God, this is crying out for a short story or a poem.
Right.
You know, and you might suggest that to somebody, but that's tricky business, because once you've emptied that out, then do you have the skill set or even the desire at that point to go back and try to hone that into something more artistic?
Catharsis and therapeutic writing and things like that are all fine. It's when the art of it comes in that you're able to take what is a block of grief or anger and turn it into something that has not just merit for you personally and emotionally, but merit artistically, and can carry that sort of weight a little bit further, which I think is the dangerous part in this kind of you know, political poetry right now, is that we might get taken with the force a little too far and lose sort of our nuance and
I have seen it happen to excellent writers who are well published and I know have great skill. I saw it during Vietnam, you know, and somebody would write a poem and you were like, oh, you can do better than that. I've seen it, but that, you know, but it sometimes is hard to get past whatever it is that you're choking on.
Sure.
You know, and so maybe you can't get there. And I do also think that there's going to be, and I expect to see a lot of poems come in that are immediate.
Sure.
And there's always that, can we get at arm's length a little bit to look at this before we vent.
Right.
Just vent. Yeah.
Well, my philosophy has always been write all the time, Write,
Yes.
write as much as you can, but just be aware that not everything you write is going to be great.
Yeah.
And you can find a lot of things sort of in the process of writing that you can use other places. Maybe you find a line. I spent, this had to have been about 5 or 6 years ago, about 6 months on a poetry project. I wrote this long sequence called As We Refer to Our Bodies. And it had all these different things in it. I really was trying to do a lot, and it failed. I didn't accomplish what I wanted to accomplish with it. But ultimately, when I was putting together what my first book was, I really liked that title. I like that title, and so I took the title from 4 months of writing and was able to use it as the umbrella for that first book. And so that 4 months was worth it.
Absolutely. I can't tell you how many times I've been working on something, and then I realize that I have 2 lines from something else on a napkin someplace or in another poem that didn't make it anywhere besides my drawer, if you will, that work there. Because I think you're always thinking about things in a writerly way if you write all the time. And when that happens, you know, things have a way of working themselves back into where they need to be, even though that isn't where you were headed with them in the first place.
I think the idea is to always keep the wheels spinning. And sometimes it's just spinning wheels not going anywhere, but eventually you'll find traction and get that inch or that foot or sometimes that yard, and you really can get something done if you're always sort of working at it. So hopefully bring it back to what we started talking about in terms of social justice, in terms of a reaction to the election, in terms of all these things. We're able to find that inch, that foot, that yard, and make some progress, even if that progress is just holding up a mirror to what's going on, or actual shaking of the foundation or anything like that. But I mean, I guess we'll see coming up. There's going to be some fantastic things. It's going to be interesting to experience it. But
it is. I was born in 1949, and I think back of everything that I've seen, and my parents were born in the late 20s, and they're still alive, and just when you think of what you've seen in your lifetime, and not just in terms of historical things, but or political things, but artistic movements. You know, the Cultural Arts Center a few years ago did an armory show, memorial, if you will. And they had local artists come in and do big projects, big sculptures. In fact, mine was the bull. And then they had poets come in, and they also had a timeline from the Armory show of all the political events that had happened, of the wars, you know, and artistic events that happened. And then they had us come in, and they had each poet take one of the sculptures or photographs or art pieces and write a poem. And then they brought in a dance troupe, a modern dance troupe, and they took some and did these interim dances to go along with the images, and they did a show there in the Cultural Arts Center that was really wonderful. That
sounds really layered and nice.
And I think they've done some things since that are similar. That I just happened to be involved in that first one. But I don't know where I was going with that. But
it all sounds like it all sounds like fun, right?
Well, but I think that we will see things like that, I hope. And I've witnessed so much in my lifetime. I think that's what I was trying to say. I've just witnessed so much. This is sure to be one of the more interesting moments that I'm going to see. I mean, we could see a lot undone. We could see a lot. We could see a surge forward in a way because of the response to things that comes in music and theater and literature and art. So we never know.
I know I've started. I'm working on stuff. I've seen some great poets like Stan Sack, some younger people, Saeed Jones, just some people. I know Maggie's working on stuff already, and the reaction is going to be. I know there's going to be some people looking for beauty, trying to find those still sort of steady streams coming in through all this. some people being very reactionary, some people trying to just elevate the dialogue, because right now, and that was maybe the most shocking thing, the vernacular used in our most recent election was shocking and inflammatory.
Yeah.
And
I found myself saying all the time, I'm not allowed to yell fire in a crowded theater if there's no fire.
Right.
And I felt like that was what was happening in the election. Somebody was just up there yelling fire, and the electorate was... But I wrote a piece actually yesterday, and I posted it on Facebook, and it was about... I mean, I've always been pretty good about vetting stories and not getting wrapped up in fake news. And And honest to God, I've been eager to believe some of the worst things since the election.
Right.
Then it suddenly dawned on me that that was the depth of other people's anger and why they listened to and bought some of the things which clearly weren't accurate during the campaign. And I hope that improves my own skills at communicating with the world, and gives me a little better understanding. I think you mentioned people are going to address it from the idea of beauty, and that's terribly important.
Yeah.
When we are in dark moments, we need beauty more than ever.
You don't want to lose complete sight.
We need to remember there's much, much good out there, and there's a spirit alive that buoys us. And we really need to hang on to that through our art and our writing as well. That will bring us together, and that will be a point of unity also. I tend to be a little reactionary immediately. I'm hoping to come to a place where I'm a little more measured. And that's kind of my goal right now, is to find that measured place. Because a lot of my writing of late has been venting, most of which I haven't shared with anyone.
We've been on our toes for a few weeks. Right.
But I do think that I'm going to be looking for some of that writing that will sustain my spirit as we move forward.
Right.
And I know there are plenty of artists around here that I can look to for some of that, you know, because this is a rich community.
It is. Well, and you are one of the reasons why it's such a rich community, so I appreciate you coming to talk to us today.
Thank you.
And as we're going to get to have some of this pumpkin bread here in just a minute, we appreciate you joining us for Cookbook. And we will see you next month for Michael Prihota. Thank you. Us for the December episode of Cookbook. Thank you to CW for teaching us how to make that delicious pumpkin bread. Next month we'll be filming with Michael Prihota, editor and publisher of After the Pause, poet, author. Sundress things to keep in mind. We are reviewing all of the Best of the Net submissions right now. They're going through our many readers, hopefully working their way soon in a month or so to the judges to make their final selections. Also, right now, if you buy a Sundress book, the proceeds will go to a charity that the authors have designated to receive the funds. Post-election, we're trying to do a lot of things to benefit the people that need it the most, trying to rally around our safe places, our places that are helping minorities, the LGBT community, all those great people that we love. So thank you for joining us for Cookbook this month. We'll be back next month with Michael Prihota. Thank you.